There we are. Takes a while sometimes, it's got to be that
Oh, I know.
southern, you know, internet.
Yippers.
And you're going slower and slower and slower and slower every time. Anyway, how you doing there, Brian? Are you coming in today?
Yep.
All right.
You hear me?
All right. Yeah. Thanks for taking over last week on Thursday. I wish I would have been there. I rewatched it. It would have been a good one. We need to have him back on again. So,
Well, except for he's just got to recommend Ed's book and not Ted's book. Otherwise, I thought it was great.
Hey, it worked. Everybody did come and find Ed's book over the last week. So I want to thank everybody who did that. And yes, I'm still in the mortgage industry. If anybody needs to know that, I was told that somebody asked somebody if I was still in the industry. Yes, I am.
Right.
And I'm fully working, and we just lost our one person. Okay. I'm just joking. The most important thing that, we've been talking about prospecting, and it's so important, but I also came across, I've been listening to Mark Hunter, the sales hunter. And he's been giving a lot of good information, and he came across some things that make up a top salesperson. And I know we're going to stay on prospecting for a while because I think it's so important, because people in sales don't do it. They do it the last thing they can do.
Everything, right? I mean, if you don't prospect, you die.
If you don't see, nothing gets sold in the business, right, until you have a customer. You don't have a customer until you create a customer. Well, you don't have a customer until you get it is prospected. It is so important all the way through, and it relies on everything else. So nothing gets sold in a business without a salesperson, and then the salesperson needs to find that customer, and then through a prospecting. So it is majorly, and I gave you that so today, so you won't say any more so's. I took it from you.
So. I might. It's my favoritist.
So today was what's the top characteristics of a salesperson? And I think it's very important for people to know. And I'm not talking just an average salesperson. I'm talking the top people. And when I was reading some of the stuff and listening to it, we all, some of us set goals, and some of us don't set goals. Top salespeople set goals that make the average salesperson cringe. Right. Okay. Some people would call it, and they also have moonshot goals, but most of their goals are so huge that the average person that's a salesperson would go, there's no way. Right. You have to be okay with setting things that you expect yourself to get to. You need to set yourself up to a new level. And I think a lot of us get stuck in the being average, being okay with that, which there could be sometimes in life, and I'll shut up in a second, let you talk, in life where that you focus on, you got things going on in your family, other things that you have to focus on that more than you focus on your selling. But if you don't, your salesperson, it's a lifestyle. It's not a job. It's a lifestyle.
Agreed. Well, that's just it, because like sales never sleeps. And I'm just going to kind of go off on a tangent for a minute, but people think that it's all fantastic. You sit around, you drink martinis and stuff. But sometimes when you go to things, it's freaking exhausting, because you're at a trade show all day, or you're out hitting the pavement all day. Then you got to go to dinners and things. And look, dinners every once in a while are fun. But when you have to do it on a consistent basis, it wears you out, because then you're putting in, 18, 20-hour days between getting up, doing the job, prospecting, going and meeting with people, staying out late with people, getting back up, repeating the process. Planes, trains, automobiles, you name it. There's a lot to it that I think people think it sounds glorious. And sometimes it is. You get some pretty amazing things being on the sales side, but it also wears on you after a while.
Some amazing things that you work for. There's nothing given to you for free. You don't just get a paycheck. You have to earn that paycheck. It's all about the face time, right? There's an acronym, TFC or whatever. It's about total face time with your customer, total face time with customer. And that's so important. And that's all it's about. Whether that's phone, whether that's video, whether that you're in front of them. But if you're not doing that, you're failing.
So we're even seeing a switch, right, where people wanted to go to Zoom for a very long time. People quit going into the office, you name it. But what, in an industry I just left, what we saw was competitors were winning again by showing up in person. And some people got lazy, going, well, it's cheaper if we don't fly. It's cheaper if we don't do. But other people were showing up, and it made a difference. There were contracts you would see going to other vendors because of that face-to-face component, or they would hire somebody locally. So when airplanes and airports shut down, they would hire a local person who could drive somewhere. Right. So I agree with you. It's getting in front of and FaceTime with somebody is so, so important. That's
Right.
why even now we do Zoom or StreamYard, and I just locked up.
You're okay now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to get in front of people, right? So you can see face to face. I've mentioned this before. Not having my daughter every day, I can't imagine what it was like for people who traveled before. Well, actually, I can tell you, my dad, we'd have to say, okay, we'll call you in your hotel room at 8 o'clock, and that's how you talk to somebody. But having FaceTime on the days I don't have my daughter is incredible versus having to call her on the phone. So,
Right. Because you can see her every day now versus how it used to be. Right.
Yep.
All right. So I know we're talking about prospecting forever, and we're going to go back to that, especially on Thursday when we have Steve Sims on.
Right.
We'll figure out some other stuff to throw him some curveballs so he can't just answer the way he does. But number 2, so I'm going to go through the list and we're just going to talk about it today. All right.
Sure.
Respect your time and others' times and makes the most of every moment. So they have the same amount of time as everybody else, but they make more of their time more valuable. They do whatever it takes. And I think the most important thing is they respect their time and others' time, because that's so true. A top salesperson worries about his time, but also when he's talking to you, that he's not wasting your time.
Absolutely.
And
So
nothing
wait,
else. Huh?
now I got a question for you on that one. I hear contradictory information. Some people say call prospect and say, "Hey, is now a good time?"
You'd never say that.
That's what I was going to. So
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying respecting people's actual time. Don't
Right.
waste their time. Don't just go there to waste their time. If, before you make that phone call, do a quick search on them to find out, but don't spend don't spend more than 10, 5 to 10 minutes on it, because you could be talking to a prospect that's not worth your time yet. Meaning that they're just a lead. A lead has to be transferred into a prospect before that you can move into it. And that's what you have to put them in. Sometimes they're not ready right now. They might be ready in 6 months from now, but you need to know that ahead of time instead of wasting your time. And when we say wasting your time, I'm not trying to offend any clients or anybody else. It's just, we only have so much time, period.
Right. I'm gonna go off on tangent for 1 second. It drives me nuts right now, the amount of cold DMs you'll get from somebody. Oh, I have this service, and they ask, "Well, what do you do?" Well, you reached out to me. Shouldn't you have at least looked at my page first before you reached out to me? That's when, as soon as somebody starts with, "Oh, hey, it's so great to meet you. I'm glad that." What do you do? I'm like, then you haven't done your research, and again, you're wasting my time. I don't need to tell you if you're the one who reached out to me.
Right. Well, the other thing is, tell me more about your business.
Yeah.
Go fuck off. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
There's my business.
There's this thing called the internet, and you can Google things. You already reached out to me. It's not that hard.
I want to bring this up. A lot of people think that focusing on social media, and this is not if anybody does it, that's their thing. But if you waste too much time on social media, you're not doing what you need to do. Face time in front of the customers, period. If you're not in front of your customers, yes, they'll know who you are when you see the stuff, but you need to be focusing more on FaceTime, period.
Right. Well, that's just it. The social media aspect is good. It's a part of the whole, right? So you can have it out there, but it can't be your only tactic is I'll just put it out there and wait for people to come to me. That just doesn't happen. I mean, there's rare occasions, but that's not the way most of life works, right? You have to put in the effort to reach people and work with them.
Well, if you look at LinkedIn, you have HR people, you have recruiters, and then you have salespeople. So if you're selling to salespeople, it is the greatest place to sell to them. But if you're selling to everybody else, that doesn't mean your person's going to be on there. Yeah, they have, I think, some ridiculous amount of millions of people, but it doesn't mean that your client that you're trying to get or your customer is on that platform.
Right.
I look at it, it's like a billboard. It's like the little bus stop that you put your name on, that people draw your mustache on your face and other stuff like that. That's another form of it. It's stuff like a phone book, right? It's not, and the advertising in the phone book. It's just one more form for people to find you and know about you, but you shouldn't spend 100% of your time on it.
100%. Well, that was redundant with what you said, but I am in agreement. It's nuts how some people will only think, "Oh, well, that's how I done it." And coming from a industry where an answer is, "Well, we've always done it this way,"
right?
That's dangerous. And it's the analogy everybody talks about. That's how you become Blockbuster, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is number 10. What continuously refine your sales process to stay ahead of the game. And that's what you're talking about, just keeping the way it was. And, it's funny because Blockbuster, speaking of that, they put out their Super Bowl commercial from years ago when they were going to be the last Blockbuster, and they actually got an insurge of business from it.
Yes. Well, there's a whole documentary on the last one that's still around, right? I
Yeah,
think it's
that's
on
what I'm talking about.
Netflix.
That one, it put its Super Bowl commercial out from years and years ago about the cockroaches coming in. The
Yeah.
one cockroach left, then that store would be the last one there. All right. 3. So the reason I went to 10 is because that's what you were just talking about. And I think it's so important. You have to read, and just because they're numbered doesn't mean they're more important, number 1 to 10. It just means that you need to do these things. The other thing is refuse to settle for I can't even talk today, dude. I'm so tired.
Mediocrity.
Thank you. And start to be exceptional in everything that you do. And that's so true. I mean,
Mhm.
you have to also, you want to be around people who do the same thing you do, period.
Right.
You want to be the 6th person, right? If you go to bars and there's 5 of your friends who go to bar and you go with them, you're the 6th person. If the 5 of your friends go to something else that's more important and more educational and you're the 6th person, I'm just saying you need to be around people that you want to be like. Period.
Absolutely. That's in every aspect of life, right? Like if you're the fastest runner in your group, then you need to find somebody else to run with. If you go to the gym, it's the same thing. I personally like group courses when I would go to CrossFit. Yes, I just said it, so I'm one of those people, but I didn't have to be the best in there, but I damn sure wasn't gonna be the last. But it was the other people pushing more that pushed me to do more. So if you're in the top of your tier and your group of friends, it's okay to still be part of that group, but you need to find another group that will level you up even more.
Right. So you're saying you worked out with the senior citizens at CrossFit, so you were the top.
In CrossFit, I am a senior citizen at 48, but yes, but I still kicked a lot of people's ass when I was doing it.
Yeah, that was the only workout I did that I tore a hamstring.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, a quad actually. I just tore my quad. It was like, really, I've done so many other things, and I did out from doing. And it was the dumbest thing, and it was just like, yeah, they were like, we see more of that as I went to the doctor than anything else from CrossFit.
Really?
All right, so, yeah,
Yeah.
aimed because the way you're doing certain things.
Right.
All right, so top salespeople make it a positive impact on the everybody else they meet, and they think it's a privilege to work with them, and that's basically kind of the same things I do. Or that's the next one. Sorry, but it's about they kind of blend together on some
They
of
do.
these,
Yeah.
right? But it's really about making sure that you impact other people positively, and because you impact your life positively, you want to help other people do the same thing, and it's
Absolutely.
a privilege to work with people.
Did you ever see the Richard Branson, the Rebel Billionaire, when he
No,
did that documentary?
no.
It was kind of like what was the one, the Apprentice, but it was his version of it. And the very first thing he did is they put makeup and stuff on him, and he picked up all the contestants from the airport, and they wanted to see how were they going to treat the chauffeur versus how were they going to act in front of him. And so that's the whole thing. You always hear that, treat the janitor like you do the CEO. That can be true, especially in a lot of industries where don't shit on the lower person now because they may be the higher person later. But why be two different people? If you're congruent and consistent, that's important. So you treat the gatekeeper just like the prospect, you name it, because that'll come back to you after a while.
You want to just keep talking?
Oh no, I'm good. I like
No,
that.
look, that's pretty much what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Be a servant leader and always be willing to help others and prioritize their needs.
Well, see, I see this one as a little bit different because as a servant leader, right, this is how do you help other peers versus how do you treat people in general. So I would differentiate.
I understand that, but it's also you can't treat people horribly and be a servant leader at the same time.
100%. That is, what do they say? The truest test of character is how you treat people who can do nothing for you. People pay attention to that stuff. People pay attention to it all the time. And there is a certain subset of people who believe that hierarchy is the only way to manage and lead, and that you will just follow my orders blanketly. And that's just not the way to do things this day and age. You'll find less and less people willing to come work for you or with you if you don't have that servant leadership.
Right. And I think it's important, but we're here to help people. And then this is the most important for me. This is what I do daily. You need a prospect. If you don't call the people you need to call, if you don't do this, you don't feel it today. You don't feel it tomorrow. You feel it next month.
Absolutely.
It used to be in my industry, we'd have a pipeline for 90 days because it took forever to do stuff. Now we have a pipeline for 2 weeks, or 3 weeks. And the biggest problem right now is the issue with other people being able to work as fast as we do, because other places they have issues like septic and leach fields and other stuff, and then it puts off the thing for 30 to 60 days.
Yeah.
Which we're not used to. Right. It's just prioritizing prospecting. You have to do it. And I think the people hate this part of the business. Well, then if you're not going to do this and do it well, please go do something else.
Yeah.
But I was listening to somebody else because they were talking about, salespeople with AI. AI is not going to mess with the salespeople. The role of the salespeople person is just going to change, but where it's going to be gone is the customer service person.
Mm-hmm. The customer service, if there's a documentation person, you name it. I told you before, I came from selling to government, and a lot of that was you had to respond to an RFP, and there used to be RFP writers, and what they would do is they'd look at what are the specs, and then they would pull what meets those requirements, and they'd put that together. Well, AI can do a lot of that now.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at your graphic designer. I've got my sister's a graphic designer, both of them. They can be affected. Then you start looking at people who write copy. I mean, you and I have played on a chat GPT quite a bit. It can write some damn persuasive stuff, but
Right.
somebody still has to present that and read the room. So it will help you with emails, cold, reach, things like that. What do you call it? Print mail, but it can never replace a person because a person has to judge what's going on the other side.
Right. And that won't happen for at least 10 years or 20. So,
yeah.
And I'll be retired by then.
So you say.
Yeah. Well, what it does is it's going to make all these illiterate people coming out of high school and other places who don't know how to do anything and can't write to be able to write like somebody who has a master's degree.
It's going to get rid of a lot of entry-level jobs. That's going to be the challenge. It's going to make them pay even less. We've talked about this on previous episodes. It was already going to where, well, it's cheaper to send it to a VA in another country than it is to do things here. Well, now VAs have that same access to pull as somebody who's brand new coming out of school. So you're going to be at that weird quandary of how do you get experience without a degree? But if after you get a degree, you need experience, right? And that's that weird part. Like, I wonder if by the time my 6-year-old, about to be 6-year-old, goes to college, will colleges still exist? I don't know.
They will. They'll just be something else.
Yeah.
All right. But the one thing about this, they'll help you, you can drop stuff in there like an email and make sure it's spelled right.
Yeah. Yep.
But if you don't, this is the biggest thing for me when I plan every day. I make sure I know what I'm doing the next day. Because the two reasons is you'll know what to do first thing in the morning, because a lot of people use Monday as their day to plan for the week, and that's just a waste of time. Big time waste of time. You need to know Sunday before what you're going to do on Monday. Right. If you're not doing that, you're not a top salesperson, nor will you be a top salesperson without doing that.
I got out of that habit. At one point, I was so overwhelmed with daily calls, Zoom meetings, you name it, that I was more in reactive mode versus proactive mode. And it does have a long-term negative effect when you're not doing that. So one of the things that I don't utilize nearly as much is here. I have a whiteboard desk. And literally last night before I went to bed, I write over here on the right-hand side, okay, what are the 5 things I need to knock out? And it's also creates a sense of accomplishment when you can knock something off of your list to show you're making progress, because it's hard. Some days you hear a lot of no's in this industry, right? So you have to celebrate every win that you do get. So sometimes a win is, did I knock these things off my list? So like I'm looking right now and I've got 3 of the 5 things already done. I got to work on another one that's here in 2 hours. But I can see a sense of accomplishment versus sitting around going, where did the day go? And I have nothing positive to show for it. Well, yes, you're making progress that pays off later.
Right. And they say never make a to-do list, make a what you'll do list.
Yeah.
Because
well, apparently I just led us right into number 8. So I should really read these in advance, right?
Well, the optimist, that's the whole thing about being an optimist outlook, because one thing that people don't realize is optimism comes in bad times. That an optimist is created in a bad time, not in a good time. And we're not yet fully there yet, but we're getting there to where we're going to be in somewhat of a bad time. And you're going to need a badder time. See, even Chat GPT can't help me speaking.
That's right.
But it's so important to and that's fuel that you need for the future. Is you need to be an optimist. If you're a pessimist, get out of sales.
I was trying to find a picture of it while we're talking. I can't find it on my phone. Last time I was in New Orleans, I saw a picture of a second line. And so one of the things I love about New Orleans, and yes, I said so,
New Orleans,
they celebrate everything. Like I actually have it on the TV over here. I'm watching Mardi Gras on Earth Cam. So watching people in costume go up and down bourbon. I watched it last night. But they celebrate everything. It doesn't matter what it is. Oh, well, I was here anyway. I was working on stuff.
Okay.
And But I bought a painting of a second line because I realized, am I celebrating enough things in life? And so every day when I get up, that's the first thing I see on this wall over here is a second line going, okay, what can you celebrate today? So that's how I do it personally. But
That works. Hey, whatever works for you. This
exactly.
is what everybody needs to be. Just a lifelong learner. We go to those different types of speakeasies, different types of
Hmm.
masterminds. I try to go to places outside of my industry to learn different
Always
things.
a new book all the time.
Yeah, well, that's why I listen to more. You can get more done walking, listening than it is for me to sit down and read. If I sit
Yes,
down and read, I'll fall asleep.
it's because
And
you're
then the
lazy.
biggest thing is once we get the knowledge, top salespeople share that knowledge with others. They're not afraid to give the next person in the same room as them that's a salesperson help on getting better and doing different things.
You can gamify things that way. When I was learning a new skill, matter of fact, when I was learning like how to decode faces, I got another buddy to do the same thing because I taught it to him, and then we'd go out and you have something to game it against, and that's the reason. Like sales keeps score, right? And that's one thing with a lot of jobs. You don't know till the end of the year what's your annual review. You might get 3%. Sales is immediate. You see what you did or you did not do, and you see the benefits or you see the loss, and that's 100% it. You have to be a lifelong learner. But and they say if you can teach it, it's learning twice because now you've learned it well enough to teach it to someone else, and that only makes you a stronger salesperson.
Right. And the same with your facial stuff, being able to
Mhm.
teach other people that. But you need to teach people how they can use that in sales. Right.
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 Which
So
slight rebranding. That's why I was up last night watching New Orleans. Is
it's
I
not
changed
really
it.
a slight rebranding. It's just explaining it differently. Right.
Right. Well,
Just
I'm saying
because you,
it went from facial analysis to decoding facial features, so that people understand that they can do it. You know what I mean?
well,
Yeah.
it's just how do I utilize it? I'm
Uh-huh.
teaching it to you. Now, how do you go out and how do you use it and teach other people? You should license more people. And we already talked about this, refining your sales process to stay ahead of the game. You have to change how you do things constantly
Hmm.
to make it better. And a lot of people want to stay in the same lane. That was fine in the 50s, 60s, 70s when things didn't change very much. But even some in the 80s, I mean, you went from 5 1/4 floppy disk to 3 1/4 floppy disk. And then you had in the 90s, you had the 286s, 386s. But
Right.
now things change so fast, it's ridiculous.
And that's where a lot of companies have to be open to listening to the salesperson, right? Who wants to do something differently. And I'll go back to the 4 hour work week. Tim Ferriss would call people from 6 to 8 in the morning and from 4 to 6 at night or something like that because he realized the gatekeepers weren't there.
Right.
And he actually got fired from that job, even though he had the highest number because they said, yeah, but you're not making calls throughout the day. And he was like, yeah, but I'm reaching the people I want to, and I'm working on other things. And that's where you have to look at if you're going to work in a sales profession, is the company open to input or are they just going to dictate what you should do? Because a lot of people who dictate haven't done the job in a very, very long time and don't understand what it is, the current environment and what works.
Correct. And they're more focused on time, micromanaging.
Hmm.
That's the problem. All right.
Yep.
My last one I have today. Yeah, I should have stopped at 10, but here's 11. Take ownership of your work and be accountable for your success and your failures.
Hmm.
I don't have failures on here, but don't blame other people for your issues. They're your own issues.
Right. Well, that's what so many people talk about. If you learn to take ownership, then you can't blame other people and you can be more in control of your life. Like we all have things. I've got things, you've got things where we want to talk about, well, this person did this and that. Yeah, but what was my part in it?
Right. I just apologize whether I'm right or wrong. Just to apologize to get it over with.
Have other people heard this or
Yeah, they actually do. Yeah, I do apologize all the time
I got you.
for clients, and that's I'll call a client. Hey, I apologize. Oh no, it's not your guy. No, I apologize. It's they work for me. They do this for me.
Right.
It's yeah. You might not
Well,
hear it. Just go.
we would go out to sites where, we were account managers. So we were dealing with the existing accounts and there would be a plethora of problems. And if we went in trying to defend why we were right, it was a failure. You just had to go in, you fell on the sword. Hey, we know this, and this is what's happening. We don't want to hide these things. We want to bring them to light. And that's what led to getting contracts extensions and renewals and things like that. Because if you went in and tried to define all the reasons why you're right and they're wrong, the relationship is destroyed. Now you can say, we need your assistance with this, or here's some things I noticed. But if you try and build up that wall and just talk about why you're right, it's never going to be a win.
No, it's you can't.
Right.
That's not selling. That is like you got to get, again, it's not being a servant leader, right? It's
Right.
not back to other stuff we talked about today. You got to prioritize prospecting. Well, if you're going in and saying how you're great, it's not working. And if you're doing that, you're not having a positive impact on somebody. You're
Exactly.
having a negative impact, right? And you're not
100%.
also, you're not refusing to settle for this. And make sure you go to bed and plan for the day. But I'm jumping all over it. But I'm just saying, if you go in that way, you'll never win. You
Right.
just need to accept whatever it is and move forward and see how you can fix it. So, because it's usually never your fault, but that you got to take it.
Yeah. When you take responsibility, you're part of the team versus when you share blame, you're an attacker. It's just the way it works.
Really? Is that like a personal thing?
No, it's we learned that through a lot of trial and error on things. But yeah. Anyway.
All right. Thanks for letting me just go through the top characteristics that I saw. And that was in the book. So Mark Hunter's book, which is Winning Sales. I think it's Winning Sales. It's his new one after his other one, what was the other one? High prospecting.
Hold on, I got it right here because you
prospect.
recommended.
Yeah.
Let me see. I can tell you. Let me look it up because it's the next one. High profit prospecting.
Right. And so that's really good. So that's Mark Hunter, the sales hunter. Look out for his books. The other thing is he just wrote a Mind for Sales. He just wrote that one. And it talks about how you have to have a mindset, right? And we talk about this all the time a while back, how mindset's important. And that changes everything. And if you have a horrible mindset, you're not going to get anywhere.
Agreed. Shameless plug. Since we're talking about books, oh, look at that. Get Ted's book.
Yeah, well, let me fix that for you. Why don't you take that off of there? There, you keep talking for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like we talked about, your book came out last week, hit number one on Amazon.
In a couple of categories, not just kids' books for buying real estate at 7 years old. It was in many categories. Mortgages,
drawn with crayons.
Yeah. Well, it's funny how they do. Here, this is what I tell people to do. It makes it easier to know who's getedsbook.com.
This is true.
See, capitalize it, because it doesn't really matter if you capitalize things when you look for the internet, because it doesn't take it.
Just only important in passwords. Otherwise, usernames don't matter. It matters in
emails don't matter either, because it's so many older people will call me and say, okay, my name, it's capitalized GT. No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But should you tell them, or should you just okay and move on?
I disagree. It's not worth it. So, all right. Well,
so what's we got Thursday?
Do we want to talk about who's going to be here Thursday? You mentioned it earlier, but
Steve Sims will be here on Thursday. We're going to talk about who knows.
Well, the goal, right, is to talk about, we're talking about prospecting now, but what happens when people reverse go to look for you? So are you making sure that you've set things up that people can find you and you're presenting what you want when people find you?
Right. But I don't worry about too much about those kind of things to where you need to get on FaceTime with some people. And I don't mean FaceTime on your phone. I'm talking actually talking to people, getting in front of people in sales. That's how you make your money. That's how you get a client. You take a lead to a prospect, to a client, by getting in front of them and seeing if they're even a good lead or not, because you got to go through. Because I had one person call me the other day and he's like, yeah, I found you on Yelp. You have really good reviews. That's great. Overall, my credit score is this. What's your rates? It's like, all right, I know that's the first question you ask people, because that's the most important thing to you, but I've never had anybody come to me and ask me for the highest rate and the most cost ever in my life. So it's really about, what can I do for you? How is it going to be a different process? And why didn't you go with the person who qualified you 6 months ago again, or a year ago? And he's like, oh, they just didn't have much knowledge. I go, well, I just wrote a book. So that didn't hurt.
If only someone had written a book. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, but it's really important. And I'm kind of being an ass right now, but it's people are just going to call you. And a lot of times, if you listen to people on Zig Ziglar, those people are calling with these first objections. They're trying to get a price point just so they can already solidify what they have already planned with somebody else. So you just have to not focus a lot of time with those people and find out where they're at. And one of the biggest ways to do that I'm going to say, a takeaway close.
Yeah.
It
goes back to what you're talking about with prospecting. You have to filter who's a good prospect and who's not. And then you can adjust your time accordingly. So you got to have disqualifications, not just qualification questions, but what's a disqualification question as well.
Right. And I have somebody I know who's working with this one agent I know that I worked with for a long time, and then was just fell apart because I don't want to get in the whole thing because I don't want. But the issue is they came to me and, do you have a problem working with them? I said no, but this is what I just want to let you know. This is what the person is like, and they're not going to be in it as much as you're in it.
Right.
Right? They're not gonna. They want to take from you and not necessarily give to you.
Right. I think when we have Steve on, we should talk about people just get this assumption that people call you out of the blue to get on stages, and that's not always the case. He's got to do prospecting. He's got to search for gigs, look for who are the promoters, what are the stages he wants to get on. I think that's what we should have him kind of talk about. How does he prospect?
Yeah, I would like to, and also with this concierge service he had before, I'd like to know how he handled those, because it's all different. Everybody thinks just because he worked with so many people, hey, I hear you're the guy. I'm sure you had to sell at one point, right?
Absolutely. He's still got to justify his price, not just like, he's definitely guilt by association with celebrities, because once you work with celebrities, people are like, oh my God, you're a badass. But you still have to justify the cost, right? Which is building value, which is a part of prospecting and everything else. So,
Right.
All right.
Well, and that's the thing about prospecting and getting your full price.
Yep.
And not discounting just to get there. Yeah.
Race to the bottom.
That's right.
Cool. All right.
All right. Thanks for letting me talk today. I hope someone found some information into what we talked about. I know I'm not like all, hey, how's it going today? Hey.
Well, you should just go and enjoy some of that humidity that you're surrounding yourself with.
Oh, my skin is so soft. It is just so amazing.
I can't do anything with my hair. It's too humid.
I don't have to worry about that. All right, everybody, thanks for watching, and make it a great day. If you like what we do, just reach out and let us know, and we will see you back on Thursday. Make it a great day.